What's up, everyone? Dan here, Crypto Capital Venture, July 13th, 2019. If you're a replay viewer, I'm going to jump right into this video. Getting started a couple minutes early before the sun catches up to me. I'm going to be doing live streams until we move. Our closing for our house keeps getting pushed up and pushed back, and just live streams work best for me. So before I get started in this video, I just want to confirm that my audio is working. So if you're here right now, can you please just press 1 if you can hear me okay? And then I'm going to jump right into the video. I see Rob in there, edit name. Alright, cool. I'm going to jump right in I'm going to try and cater to the replay viewers, especially because these live streams are becoming commonplace around here. So before the sun catches up to me too, I feel like I have like 10 minutes before this thing is shining in my computer. I have Litecoin charts open. We'll get to that in a second. I want to start on Bitcoin. I want to start on Bitcoin weekly. Here's the thing. Everybody wants Bitcoin and Litecoin to keep going up, obviously. But I think, and here's the thing, when I talk about dips and I talk about consolidation coming, you know, I feel like I'm being like a pessimist, right? Because when you're on crypto, social crypto, everybody's pretty much bullish. I mean, I'm bullish, right? It's fun. There's a lot of energy. We're all excited. So it's hard to just, you know, step in and start talking about downside. But, you know, it's kind of, when you look at the weekly, which I guess we'll just start there, it's kind of just obvious how overextended Bitcoin is, right? So I'm going to really just start on the weekly real quick for anybody new that hasn't seen videos as of lately. Namely talking about a huge resistance area that we're at right now. I always start videos with this pretty much on Bitcoin right now. Swing high bull market, swing low bear market. We have our 786, 618 channel up here. This isn't drawn perfectly. I'm just giving you context. And that's why you will see this very big rectangle of resistance that we've hit, right above 13,000 into that 14,000 range, up to 16,000. This is a huge Fibonacci long-term resistance. Many people are tracking this. So that's first things first. The second thing that I want to start off on the weekly, so that you are reminded, is we've talked about it really, you know, for a while now, even going back to probably when we first touched this line around 80 on the RSI. In the middle of the screen here, you see this line in May, the middle of May, I guess. I'll open this up for you. I want to open up this RSI so you can see. But this line up here, right? We saw that first hit of resistance. We got some consolidation going into June. We had another run, right, up to the 14,000 range. But where we're at that line on this RSI, and it's a very critical line because you can just see, and this is the weekly chart. This is going back, right here is 2016. Back here is 2013. You can see this line is really the precursor to a major pullback. Even if short term, these are major pullbacks, everybody. Every time you see this bounce on the RSI. So we're in that vicinity right now. So we have to have a little bit of, you know, realistic anticipation in terms of, while we all want Bitcoin to keep going up, right? We want Bitcoin to keep going up. Just historically, for the lifetime of Bitcoin sees resistance up in this area, right? So I doubt Bitcoin's just going to see momentum continue to the upside. At the very least, Bitcoin, you know, maybe it'll get another run up into this area, 85 to 90. Then we're going to see major resistance. I don't know where that run would be, but I'm more inclined to anticipate just resistance where we already are. I feel it's safer. I like to be more prepared. I like to be on my toes, ready to accumulate a dip if it comes. The other thing I want to talk about is this on the weekly chart. In terms of these pullbacks, what can we anticipate for accumulation, right? So on the RSI, this area right around 60, this red line that I have here, is a great area of consolidation on these weekly pullbacks, right? So, and you can see it here on Bitcoin. So I just want to throw that out there, that if we do get consolidation, what to look out for on the RSI momentum oscillator in terms of where might we see support. And while we're checking that out, if it happens, at the same time we'll be checking out the patterns. So that's that, right? So that's number one. That's kind of momentum on the upside, and I'm just making sure I'm still live, everybody. So that's momentum on the upside. That's the weekly chart zoomed out. We saw our resistance. Here it is on the daily chart. This huge rectangle of resistance is a Fibonacci retracement. So now when we're digging into the chart shorter term, what's going on? Well, number one, and this will be more clear on the 4 hour when we get to that in a minute, but number one, we have this inverse head and shoulders, right? This red inverse head and shoulders that we were tracking right here. We got a breakout right around here on July 9th. And since then, we didn't hit our target to the upside. We've actually come back down. We tested the neckline right here on July 11th. And, you know, while we're still pretty much kind of seeing support around that neckline area, I'm not having a ton of confidence in this inverse head and shoulders. So I just want to throw that out there since we've been tracking it. That's number one on the inverse head and shoulders. Number two, a more important area, I guess, that I'm watching right now is this. And you might have, if you've been watching these videos for a while, you might remember we were tracking this rising wedge. You know, it started in May. We had this false breakout to the bottom. Then we had this rising wedge, false breakout to the bottom. This entire rising wedge broken very bullishly, right? We tracked that a lot. But the biggest talking point of this entire pattern for me has been this upper trend line. It's really served as a great data point of first resistance, right? Obviously in this rising wedge back here, we had two or three higher highs of resistance in May, but now it's been acting, this entire trend line extending back to May, now into July, is acting as support multiple times, right? So we have a touch here, we have a touch here, here, and then recently, even the last 3 days on this daily chart, you can see this trend line continuing to act as pretty much support for Bitcoin. So it's a huge area that I'm watching right now. If this trend line gets broken, I think that's going to play very much into the downside scenario of Bitcoin. So not only do we have, I mean, we're in a really kind of a tight range right now. Bitcoin at around 11.3. Not only do we have this resistance right here at the 618 line on this long-term Fibonacci, right? But now we have support at this longer, you know, I guess you could say short to mid-term trend line down here, and it's getting tighter, right? We're kind of being squeezed into the apex of these two areas, namely this 618 line right here around 13,000, and this trend line that's closing in on that 13,000. So I'm anticipating a move going into the apex of these two trend lines. There's a lot of things happening there. Just below those trend lines down here in the 9,800 is really a huge area of support that we're anticipating. 9,800 is a 50 moving average. You see it here. That's currently my biggest area of support right now. It's also my biggest step in of accumulation of Bitcoin. Now, going over the 4 hour in terms of accumulation and my approach to Bitcoin and my approach to buying the dips, here's what we're looking at. On the 4 hour, you know, and it's not really something I would probably be buying, but a lot of, but it's what I was prepared to buy. So we go to the Fibonacci retracement on Bitcoin, and we essentially have this area down here. You see that we were anticipating for support, swing low, swing high. We had our Fibonacci channel down here. It was a kind of a, and I say this a lot, I should probably find another way of saying it, but you know, warming up my buy fingers for Bitcoin. This was a first area of me doing that before getting to that $9,800 area on the daily chart, right? That's where the 50 moving average is. This was my first area. Now, what happened was Bitcoin didn't really fall into the area for me to even really start buying. We saw support right at the 618 line, which is a good thing, right? So for us in tracking Bitcoin on the 4 hour, what that equates to is from that swing low is a higher low, right? So we have kind of a higher low in play, and that's bouncing off of a swing high back in the end of June, right? And a swing high back in the beginning of July. So on this 4-hour chart, what you see kind of forming right now is we have a couple lower highs. Well, we have a swing high, a lower high, then we have a swing low and a higher low. So now we have this symmetrical triangle kind of in play. So we're kind of entering an apex of a symmetrical triangle. At the same time, we're entering the apex of a very tight area of resistance and support, which we just looked at on the daily chart, which is this $13,000 Fibonacci 618 and this mid to short term trend line right here. So Bitcoin is being squeezed right now. And for me, when something like that is happening on the daily and the 4-hour chart, what I really go back to for just perspective is the weekly chart to get the idea of what's more likely to happen next. Because when we're looking at the daily and the 4-hour and Bitcoin's being squeezed, absolutely, Bitcoin can continue, right? We can pop out of this symmetrical triangle that we just talked about on the 4-hour, right? We can pop out of the upside. But for me and my approach to Bitcoin, if that happens, I'm kind of like, that's awesome. It'll be fun to do a video on that. It'll be fun on Twitter. But there's no real like monetary action on my part. The monetary action for me comes when Bitcoin actually doesn't break to the upside, it breaks the downside. I want to be on my toes. I want to be ready for that. Not because so I don't talk about the downside a little bit more because I'm bearish or pessimist. I do it because I just want to be more ready for that, right? I don't need to be ready for Bitcoin exploding to the upside. I really don't need to be ready. I'm ready already. And that's my approach. And that's really, at the end of the day, my recommendation to everybody. No matter where we are you ready for whatever happens, downside or upside? Are you ready to enjoy gains to the upside right now? Or are you ready to accumulate if we see downside? So that's kind of what I'm looking at on Bitcoin. Really the biggest area for me, if Bitcoin decides to break through this lower trend line, is the 50 moving average right now. It really is just historically for the lifetime of Bitcoin, it is the foundation of Bitcoin and its consolidation. When we're overextended to the upside, and I shouldn't use my hands, I should just use a chart. When we're overextended to the upside, no matter where we are, Bitcoin gets pulled back down over and over again for the lifetime of these charts. So that's really the biggest area I'm looking at. Not going to go any more deep or any deeper into what a stronger consolidation would look like, just because I've talked about that before, right? We have the 50-week moving average. We have other support ranges leading down to that area, but that's a whole different video. Mainly what I'm interested in right now is the daily chart 50 moving average if Bitcoin breaks below the support that we're on right now. But we'll keep tracking it. Moving over to Litecoin, because this is a Bitcoin and Litecoin video, and I'm trying to make it efficient and quick for everybody. But Litecoin. So first off, Litecoin, awesome news this week with Miami Dolphins. I just love that. It's ridiculous. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. I covered the news back in what was that? That was a couple days ago when it came out. So if you missed that video, go watch. Now, the one thing on the weekly chart of Litecoin that I like, right? And we've been talking about Litecoin. Overextended, right? From this swing high, almost at $150. I'm doing videos talking about be careful, everybody. Litecoin pullback and potentially in play at this point because Litecoin's looking ridiculously overbought. We have the halving coming up. There's only been one other halving, and last time, around a month or 2 months before the halving, Litecoin broke down into the halving. So a lot of clues were telling us at like 150, be careful for a dip. And so far, we've almost seen 40% to the downside for Litecoin. This isn't me saying I told you so, but it's more just proof that these charts, I'm telling you, they just are so consistent. The harmony in these charts, the harmony in the cycles of Bitcoin and Litecoin are incredible. And it's almost like a giveaway for us, right? So we anticipated this dip, and there's still, in my opinion, a lot of room for downside, right? And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. Worst case scenario, in my opinion, 50-week moving average in the 60s for Litecoin. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. I'm ready if it happens. You should be too. But I think what is stronger support above that range, not too far above that range, which is one thing I want to talk about in this video. But the other thing in terms of momentum, I do want to just point out is I do want to magnify, since we hit this resistance area, right, on the weekly chart, right around 78, right below 80 on the RSI, Litecoin has come back down a little bit, right? And that's what we wanted to see, because we talked about it as we're leading into that area. And as I'm talking about this resistance area and comparing it to the last halving back here, right? So look at the charts first. Here's the last halving, 2015, right? Here's the last halving. And if you look at the RSI, we hit this resistance and we had a huge 70% dip, right, back to the 50-week moving average. So I started talking about anticipate that as a possibility. So far what has happened, if we look at the weekly chart, we hit the resistance area, almost right where Litecoin saw resistance on the RSI down here back in 2015. We hit that. We haven't quite come back down to the 50-week moving average, right, this blue line up here around $65, but we've come down a little bit. And that's a first good sign. Now, if you see, and we can even put a line like really right where Litecoin kind of just consolidated for a while after the dip, you can see we're actually almost at that line on the RSI. This is the weekly RSI. So there could be still a little bit of room to go on the downside for Litecoin to get to that area. And that's mainly why we have this area around the 90 range, in the 80s. That's kind of just generally my area. And we can talk about more why that is as we go to the daily chart here. So before I hop into the daily chart, check out the RSI, check out the stock RSI. They've come back down. And I'm looking all in this area right here. And I just made it smaller. That's awesome. So I'm talking about right down here, consolidated. Right down here, consolidated. And right down here on the MACD, consolidated. So we're looking for a momentum shift in the coming weeks on all of these charts, including the weekly chart. But if we open up the daily chart, this is what I want to talk about. When you're looking at charts, you can kind of subconsciously, even without even knowing technical analysis, get an idea of, you know, instinct. What is your instinct telling you about what you're seeing on the charts? What is your instinct telling you about momentum? Where's momentum headed? So up until really like the last couple of days, this last week, I guess you could say, Litecoin has just had this awesome pattern of higher highs and higher lows since December. It has been so strong. It's been great. It's been the precursor to a bull market that is getting ready to ensue, in my opinion. That's not a fact, but what has happened since that swing high, and these birds are driving me nuts. I hope it's not too loud on the microphone. What has happened since this swing high of 150 on the daily chart is a very big indicator. We broke through the 50 moving average July 9th, right? So 4 days ago, I guess you could say, we broke through the 50 moving average to the downside. That's a huge area of support. Thus far, we haven't gotten back above it, right? We haven't really even attempted to, which is the first thing we want to happen. And at one point, we were even 20% overextended from the moving average. So, are these birds loud, everybody? Because they're driving me insane. I'm about to throw a rock up there, maybe scare them away. They're driving me nuts. Okay, good, they're not loud. All right, they're only bothering me, not you, so that's all that matters. So 20% overextended at one point, below the 50 moving average, right? Currently, we're around 16% overextended to the downside, which really isn't overextended. So that's number one on momentum. You're seeing a shift in momentum for Litecoin. That's a concern, right? but it's also a beginning of potential opportunity for Litecoin, meaning a dip that is getting ready to happen. So Litecoin's down a good amount since our swing high, but there is definitely room for further downside. One area I want to talk about on the daily chart is a fib retracement from this swing low back in the end of April to our swing high, right? I want to talk about this channel here. So let me get a nice little rectangle. This is the Fibonacci retracement channel on a daily chart, the 618 to 786, and it pretty much is probably the biggest thing besides the 50 moving average on Litecoin that I'm watching right now. It's what I'm waiting for. Litecoin already hit it. Litecoin hit the 618 exactly at like $95. So you might remember me talking about, you know, when I was talking about potential dip for Litecoin, and people weren't too happy about it. I think I tweeted the low 100s is my first area where I'm going to warm up my buy fingers, right? So that's pretty much what has happened in the last few days. And I bought a little Litecoin. It's discounted Litecoin even there. Now my heavier buy zone is pretty much this 618 to 786 channel on this Fibonacci range. Now you can notice it goes down to around $82. The 618 is around $95. That's my biggest area I'm watching for Litecoin. I want to see Litecoin, if we get support in that channel, sideways support would be probably the most healthy looking thing, as opposed to a short-term bounce. Sideways support will really let us consolidate on the weekly and daily charts, and that's where I'll be accumulating a little more heavily. That's kind of my second buy zone. So very light buy zone here. Already bought some Litecoin there. Mid-range buy zone, but a good amount where I'm happy that I bought this dip, right? And then lastly, the very heavy buy zone down to the $65 range is my third buy zone. This is how I dollar cost average in. I wait for dips to do it. I'm always buying Bitcoin and Litecoin, but I'm always buying heavier when we get the dips, right? And we talk about when we're facing a bull market or in a bull market, what will it look like to buy the dips? Well, we're getting a taste of that now. This is what it looks like. So there it is. The 200 moving average around $72 on the daily chart. If we go back to the weekly, here's the weekly chart. Let me zoom in a little bit. Let me expand this. There's the weekly 50 moving average, $65. That's where Litecoin went to, consolidating into the last halving, right? So it's totally in play. I want everybody to know, especially if you're new to this space, that's scary, right? Especially if you just like got into Litecoin right here at 140 some dollars, because that would mean Litecoin is down 56% if we hit $65. That's scary if you're not familiar with these markets. That's scary if you're reading the negative comments on social media, YouTube, Twitter, people saying Litecoin is done, Litecoin's never going to see all-time high again. Maybe Litecoin doesn't see an all-time high again. But the reason people are saying that is not based on any type of technical analysis, and it's usually people that don't understand these markets and haven't been around a long time. These pullbacks are necessary in terms of seeing all-time highs again. If we got to $65, that actually increases, in my opinion, the likelihood of all-time highs being ridiculously higher than many anticipate. And a perfect illustration actually is simply just revisiting the last time Litecoin saw a swing high to a 70% consolidation to the 50-week moving average in the last halving, right? This entire consolidation right here was the precursor to an incredible massive bull run, right? So imagine these prices consolidating down to $65, not consolidating down to like $3 like it did in 2015, consolidating down to $65, and then preparing for the most massive bull markets in cryptocurrency history, namely because prices will be outrageous. Litecoin would have the potential to explode with consolidation like that. So I just wanted, I'm not saying I think it's going to go to $65, but it's definitely in play. Huge buy zone for me. please be prepared for it. But at the same time, I wouldn't be scared by it. If you're not spending more money than you can afford to lose, and you're being smart and responsible with your money, there's nothing to be scared of. That's incredible opportunity, especially maybe you missed sub $100 prices. This would be probably, in my opinion, the last time anybody is able to get those prices. So, yeah, Rob's saying next top will be thousands. I'm not even joking or shilling. It's so obvious when you look at the charts, especially comparing it to BTC. And that's the bottom line. 100% agreed. I try not to talk about Litecoin in the thousands because I don't want to hype everything up too much and get newbies too excited, because $1,000 Litecoin plus $2,000 Litecoin, it takes an incredible amount of patience. That's probably not something that's going to be happening very soon. But if you look at the charts and you align it to Bitcoin, you're going to see the possibilities, right? And when you start really digging into numbers and what that looks like for market cap and all these things, it's extremely possible and plausible. So that's what I'm looking at on Litecoin. I spent a lot of time on the weekly and daily. I didn't even really dig into the 4-hour chart. Here's the 4-hour charts. Here's pretty much, a similar channel of accumulation on the 4-hour chart. The 4-hour chart, I haven't been watching as much. I'm not too concerned with. Obviously, we're consolidated on the RSI down here on the 4-hour chart. You see this white line in the middle of my screen. That's the RSI. RSI has come down from our 150 swing high, which is good, but I'm way more concerned right now with Litecoin on the daily and the weekly chart. So these areas of accumulation, my action plan is literally on the screen. Very light buy, mid-range buy, very high buy. It's what I'm ready for. If we go up, trust me, I've been accumulating Litecoin long enough where I'm extremely happy with my position right now. And I will very much enjoy the ride. So I actually think I had, let me see here. So let me try and clear, actually let me go back to this daily chart. I don't think I wrote on it as much. Here, let me change this to daily chart. I want to zoom in and show you something. So on this daily chart, the other thing it doesn't play well into the bullish mindset. Not only do we break this 50 moving average and the blue line you see here, but this area here that you see there, with everything else that we just looked at, how we need consolidation for Litecoin, how we're going into the halving, all these things that play into potential downside for Litecoin. What we have here is pretty much what looks like a head and shoulders. It's not a huge one, but it's a head and shoulders nonetheless. And we've broken through the neckline. Very simple. Now, the target for this head and shoulders is right around $85. So it's, again, right in our range. So it really wouldn't surprise me if we get, at the very least, another leg down into this very important channel that we're watching. So I think that $85 is a very interesting sweet spot for me. I want to see what happens. And the only thing that we can do is wait and see. So those are my thoughts. Bitcoin, Litecoin, I wanted to do a nice little live stream for everybody. I hope you're doing awesome. I guess before I leave, tell me, press 1 if you're buying, press 2 if you're waiting for cheaper prices. I want to know what mindset you got. I got my phone open right now. Michael says we need 4K Litecoin. Map to Success, what's up? Map to Success, appreciate you being here. Says smash that like button. We got a couple 2s. Assad Harari with a 2. Apex Woot, Brian Long 2. Rob with a 1 and 2. Michael says you wait, you miss out. That's a good point. Listen, if you're new and you haven't had the opportunity to accumulate Litecoin and you want to, maybe $102 right now is the cheapest Litecoin you're going to get. And you're taking a little bit of risk by waiting for a potential dip. That's very true. And that's what comes into play, your mindset, your approach, the importance of not listening to YouTubers and people on Twitter for financial advice, and really just evaluating, if you're long on Litecoin, would it make a difference if you just bought a bunch of Litecoin at $100 versus $60 to you? How long on Litecoin are you? How long on Bitcoin are you? You have to find your approach from a risk tolerance perspective, and not really browse YouTube looking for predictions. But at the very least, I think what most indicators are telling us is there's definitely a lot of room for further downside for Litecoin and Bitcoin, which we just saw. So that's pretty much it. We have some ones, we have some twos. It's kind of a mix. I think I see some more twos than ones in terms of accumulating. And I'm looking at the replay of the video. My hat looks funny. So that's it, everybody. Michael says, love your hat. Thanks, Steve. It's one of my favorite hats. Probably my favorite hat. So that's it. Bitcoin, Litecoin technical analysis. The sun is getting ready to get me. I've lost shade. Thank you for bearing with me these kind of longer live streams. But I'm telling you, our closing keeps getting pushed back, and we're not in our house yet. I'm not in the studio yet. It's been extremely frustrating week, actually, to be honest with you. But we're plugging away, and hopefully I have my U-Haul cleared out this week, and we're set up. But you all are awesome. Be impatient. If you're here right now, you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. I would absolutely love to have you as part of the channel as we grow, as I think we are getting ready to enter a bull market. If you're a replay viewer and you're actually still here, you're ridiculously awesome, and thank you. I appreciate you. Hit that like button on the way out. I will see you all in the next video. Have a great day, and God bless.